Pinocchio, 2002, directed by Roberto Benigni. It's time to do another, does this movie deserve a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes? (2002's) Italian version of the beloved story Pinocchio. Roberto Benigni misfires wildly with this adaptation of Pinocchio, and the result is an unfunny, poorly made, creepy vanity project. And I gotta agree with this consensus. This movie's terrible. There's 55 people who watched this movie and reviewed it on Rotten Tomatoes. There's a lot of other people who watched it. It also has an 18% score with the audience. Where to begin on this movie, Pinocchio? We're gonna start from the beginning. So this movie tells the tale of Pinocchio. It is an Italian movie, but I could not find this movie in its original Italian language with the subtitles. So I had to watch the US dubbed version, which is even more laughable. It's awful. Anyway, so Maduro is this guy who basically is in charge of bringing the fairy, played by Nicolette Bresci, I believe is her name. She's married to Roberto Benigni. The man behind Life is Beautiful, by the way, which is one of my favorite movies of all time, made this stinker of a film. Essentially, this guy, he has a stuffed animal with him, and it's very awkward and weird and off-putting. Like, why does this guy have a stuffed animal with him? This guy is at least got to be in his 60s, and it's just not a very good look. So the movie kind of starts off as satire in a way, but it does not hit on the satire at all. The way that Pinocchio comes to life in this movie is really hilarious. You see, in this small Italian town or city, there's this log that's basically magical. It just kind of shows up from one end of the city to the next, and Geppetto comes into possession of this log, and he decides, I'm going to make a puppet out of this magical log, and he makes Roberto Benigni's creepy Pinocchio, which Pinocchio is supposed to be a little boy. Last time I checked, Roberto Benigni was like 50 the time that this movie came out, in his 50s, so it's just really creepy. There's no strings attached either, whereas like there are other puppets in this movie, and they have strings. Like, why did you not make it a point to have strings attached to Roberto Benigni's Pinocchio? If you have them on the other puppets, then why not on the actual puppet that we know, or it's supposed to be a puppet or something? Quoting Austin Powers, it's not a boy, that's a man, baby. Like,
Austin!
My God, man, what have you done?
That's not your mother, it's a man, baby!
that's really what it is. Like, he is a 50-year-old man playing Pinocchio, and it is very creepy to watch him interact with certain characters, especially Geppetto. And not only that, he's so annoying. He's in your face. He's blatantly all over the place. It just felt like what Benigni was trying to do. I understand he was trying to make a comedy, but it was just like, this is not funny. It's very creepy and weird, and it truly does represent what a vanity project is. I mean, this isn't really a love letter to this character of Pinocchio. There's nothing redeeming about this movie. This movie's just flat out horrible because of the inconsistencies and the fact that you're supposed to have a boy playing Pinocchio, but yet you have a 50-plus-year-old man who is a 2-time Academy Award winner playing Pinocchio.
Aspetta.
Mi piace di più questa!
Pinocchio!
Babbo! No!
Dove vai? Vieni qua, Pinocchio!
Questo chi è? Come si
Ma
chiama?
cosa
Questo
fai?
è? Questo come si chiama?
Pinocchio,
Questo chi è, babbo? No!
Vieni
Il letto!
Ma
Il
dove
letto
vai?
del bimbo!
Pinocchio!
Babbo!
Vieni qua, i capelli! Non lo sa nessuno che porto la
Vieni,
parrucca!
babbo, in quest'ala del mio babbo!
Attento, ti fai male,
Che
Pinocchio!
c'era? Quello,
I capelli!
Qui si salva, babbo, lì,
Ma
babbo,
vieni qua, Pinocchio!
la seggiola del mio babbo, il tavolino del mio babbo, questo lo so come si...
Oh, and Geppetto has this weird thing where he likes to talk to inanimate objects. Like, throughout the entire movie, he talks to himself, and you think he's talking to himself, but you find out he's actually talking to an object. And he, like, kisses objects and stuff. Like, it's really weird. So Geppetto is just as freaky and creepy as Pinocchio is. Some might say that they're destined for each other because they're essentially the same thing. The magical log turns into Pinocchio. Geppetto is a big creep. Like, these are things that, like, you can tell from the first 10 minutes of this movie, and it's consistently throughout the film that these guys are both very creepy and very weird. And here's another thing. Roberto Benigni is supposed to be the son of Geppetto. Roberto Benigni is probably, like, only a few years younger than the actual actor who played Geppetto. And then when Pinocchio comes to life, he wants to explore, right? He wants to go and cause havoc and and play around and be goofy and funny like as little kids do, you know, and he's trying to be innocent with it. The police officers find him, they bring him back to Geppetto, and they act as if he's been there for so long. It's like he just came out in the street like 2 minutes ago. You don't know anything about this character, but yet they're talking as if Pinocchio's been alive for months. Like it's just lazy writing. There's nothing that makes sense. Like time does not matter in this movie. There's even a scene later on where Pinocchio's in prison, and when he's in prison, he's supposed to be serving 5 years, and then there is kind of this event that happens. I'm just gonna say it. The king has a son that's born or something. I don't even know. I don't care. And to celebrate, they release all of the prisoners, and Pinocchio asks, have I already served my 5 years? And the guard says, no, you've only served 4 months, but you're free. It's been not even a minute. He just got into jail. There's no break either. There's nothing that signifies, there's no transition that signifies that he has been there for a lengthy amount of time. There's like no time concept in this movie. And when he's supposed to be gone for 4 months, everyone looks the same. Everything is the same. And there's no consequences. It's just, this movie is ridiculous. It really doesn't make any sense. There's no really concrete idea. There's no through line. And it doesn't really feel like they're taking this thing too seriously. And that's the problem, because even though it's supposed to be satire, it's supposed to be funny, you should not have crafted it this way, in such where we actually feel like some type of emotion or some type of guilt towards the character of Pinocchio. Because how could we? He's not a boy. He's a 50-plus-year-old man. I'm going to say that 100 times in this video. I don't care. Take a drink every time I say it, I guess. Pinocchio also goes around and he says what things are, like bird, squirrel, house, whatever. How does he know this stuff? He's been alive for 3 minutes. It's not like, you know, he just was taught everything. It's not like he's been around for a while and Geppetto taught him anything. Geppetto has taught him nothing. He hasn't even gone to school. How does he know what these things are? And then not only that, there's a scene in the movie where a character's like, I'm going to give you this or something, or like it's like some type of food. And he's like, oh, I don't like that. How do you know? You've never tried it. I mean, I guess we're supposed to fill in the holes here, but why is it so inconsistent? This doesn't make any sense. Who is this character? Like, this doesn't really feel genuine to me. Jiminy Cricket, a character that everyone loves from Disney's Pinocchio, looks like this. Great character. The Jiminy Cricket that they give us in this version looks like this. If that doesn't creep you out and give you nightmares, I don't know what will. This is probably the scariest thing about this movie. There are like some really creepy things about this movie. This is probably the creepiest thing. Jiminy Cricket looks ridiculous. It almost looks as if like they just weren't trying anymore. They're just like, you know, Benigni won an Oscar for Life is Beautiful. They love him. The Academy loves him. We could just do anything at this point, and you know, they'll still love him. And that's clear as day that that's not the truth. But how do you go from Life is Beautiful to this? I don't get it. I don't fathom how this actually happened. And then another thing, Pinocchio says books are vile throughout the movie, and it's like he doesn't even know how to read. So how does he know that they're vile? He's never even had a book read to him. He's never even attended school, like I said. I don't know. This character apparently is all-knowing in every way. Yeah, the movie just has like a really bad pace. I'm like trying to look over notes, honestly, and like I'm thinking to myself, like, what did I just watch? The movie acts as if we've been watching the movie for like 2 hours when it's only been like 15 minutes. That's something that happens. And then Pinocchio like backtracks and says he's gonna read because he feels guilty, I guess. And yet he said literally 10 minutes before that books are vile. So the character changes like the breeze of the wind. I mean, he just changes directions and everything. Also, this is another weird thing. How does everybody know him? Everybody knows Pinocchio. They know that he's a puppet. They know that he was created by Geppetto. How? How did this spread around? Like, this is supposed to be set in a different time period. There was no radio. There was no television. There wasn't really like that communication. They should have gotten it in the newspaper or something. And it should have been like this character had been around for months, but it was only been like 20 minutes and yet everyone knows who Pinocchio is. How is that possible? That makes zero sense to me. Is it like Geppetto just all of a sudden has the biggest and boisterous voice in the world and just told everyone that Pinocchio was born? And when Pinocchio was born, the whole earth shook and all of a sudden everybody in the world knew that, you know, Pinocchio was born. And then everyone knows he's a puppet, but yet he looks human. Because he, like I said, he interacts with other puppets in the movie and they actually have strings attached to them and they look like puppets. And I actually thought that they were humans portraying puppets, but they're actually puppets. That whole scene's weird too, because basically the guy who is in charge of the theatrical department with these puppets, it's his show. He takes Pinocchio, he's going to eat Pinocchio, and then Pinocchio tells him the sad story about his dad, how Geppetto's a poor man, and that he needs to spare his soul because that's all his dad would want. And this guy cries and like sneezes 100 times. And
accanto a noi ha fatto un funerale con 7-8 morti. Perché sono ricchi. Il mio babbo neanche uno.
I think the humor is trying to appeal to kids, but I don't understand how a kid could find that funny. This movie's just really, it's I wouldn't say it's boring, but I think the movie just has some interesting themes that never go anywhere. And even when you're trying to hit that certain target audience, that certain demographic with certain comedy, it doesn't work. And you could tell that Benigni's really trying to stretch it a little bit with what he's putting in this film. The fox and the cat, these characters are caricatures in themselves. And a lot of characters are caricatures in this movie, and there's a big difference between characters and caricatures. Characters have substance. Caricatures do not. They have no substance to them. There's no depth there. There's like no actual really arc to these characters. And when we first see Fox and Cat, I was kind of confused because in a way they look like normal people and real people, but then you realize how much they actually play into the caricatures of other things and of other actual people that some people might find offensive to this day, to be honest, with certain things that these characters say. Just know that these are caricatures and they're supposed to embody something as opposed to actually having substance and being actual characters. And a lot of characters are like that. There's literally one joke in this movie that I actually found pretty insulting to intelligence, and that is the cat and the fox talk about poo-poo land. And at that moment, I realized, wow, they really are trying to go for that kid audience. Pinocchio, you think is dead because they like hang him, essentially, but then you find out he actually isn't dead. And then he doesn't want to take medicine because, you know, he's just stubborn and kind of an idiot. And he's like, it smells terrible. And then he gets visited by these rabbit things that are like holding a coffin. And they're like, get in, we brought this coffin for you. And he's like, no, I'm going to take the medicine. The fairy wouldn't let me have it. Like, what are we watching? Why is a 50-year-old man acting like a 5-year-old? How in any world, shape, or form is this considered entertainment? Because I don't find it funny at all in the slightest. I feel like this is kind of just like, I love Benigni. I really love Benigni, but like, I'd be embarrassed if I had to go back and watch this movie and see the things that I was doing in this movie. And I know that sometimes you try to get it for that comedy, but you're really stretching, man. And it's not funny. Pinocchio's annoying throughout the entire movie. I'm just reading it off the list. Because you know what, guys? This movie's so bad. Like, I don't even really care to talk about this movie that much. It's, like, that bad. The nose growing scene happens a couple times where the nose grows. Only twice in this movie. And every time, it is disturbing. It looks messed up, and the CGI doesn't look very good. It's like if someone took your nose in Photoshop and they just stretched it to the absolute max. That's what it looks like. It's just not a very good effect, and it doesn't really do much to the story because we know that that's kind of like Pinocchio's dilemma in the actual animated film. And like in the story, the dilemma is him being honest. He has to be an honest boy. And in this movie, it doesn't really feel like that. This movie has so many times where Pinocchio messes up and there's zero consequences. The fairy just says, it's okay. You're doing great. I believe in you. You're a good boy. You've learned your lesson. No, he hasn't. There needs to be consequences to these actions. It's like, it's almost like you're making this character stunted. You're not letting him grow because essentially you feel as if this character is dignified by his actions, which is a whole nother thing in itself. Then like lollipops become like a big currency in this movie. Like they're like a big deal for some reason because his best friend Leonardo likes lollipops, and then Leonardo turns into a donkey. That's who he goes to the place with, and blah, blah, blah. He becomes a donkey, and yada, yada, yada. Like, look, this is like just the Pinocchio story, just worse in every imaginable way. It's terrible. Everything from Geppetto needing milk or else he's going to die to Leonardo being a donkey and he can speak while he's a donkey, to Pinocchio English. Or it's like either that or it's like telekinetic. I don't even know. This movie sucks, though. Don't watch this movie. It's garbage. This is not as bad as Disappointments Room because at least this movie is kind of entertaining from the bad perspective. But Disappointments Room was just really boring. But this movie is awful in every way. This is not Benigni at his best. Go watch Life is Beautiful. Go watch the actual Pinocchio, the animated film, or any other version that's not this one. I feel like you get a lot more out of those. It took me like 2 days to watch this movie because I could not get into it. I felt dumber. Like It's like that scene from Billy Madison where the guy says this.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
I feel exactly like that. Like, I feel like dumber for having watched this movie. I don't know why I keep doing this to myself, but I hope you guys enjoy these videos. Guys, I hope you all have a great holiday. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you guys like this content, make sure you hit that thumbs up button. And also consider subscribing to the channel down below. We just hit 500 subs. I really appreciate all of you. I will be having a 500 subscriber special live stream coming up next week sometime whenever I get home and I'm back in my office. I'm sorry for the setup. I know it's dark. I mean, I'm making the best of what I got, but I'm currently not home. And I'm hoping I can get this video up after I recorded this. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. I love you all. Have a great, safe holiday, and I'll catch you guys on the next video. Peace.